back again for another Saturday Live. Johnny Williams here with another great topic, a tough topic, an area of focus that many of us often avoid. It's not an easy topic. Today we're talking about forgiveness. Forgiveness. You see, there's a gift in forgiveness, and you will be the first beneficiary of that gift. But most people will never extend nor offer forgiveness because they perceive themselves as giving something to someone who took something from them. Took a moment, took some peace of mind. Maybe something very deep was taken from you. But forgiveness is necessary. Forgiveness is necessary. I see power in forgiveness. I do not see the people forgiving being the powerless ones. I see forgivers being those individuals that steward their power in a more effective way towards those that maybe misuse, abuse power, which is why forgiveness is necessary. Forgiveness is not forgetting. Let's be clear. It's not forgetting. Forgiveness is not giving up. But we are giving up some things. I see us giving up the guilt associated with the shame. I see us freeing someone in a relationship that we are engaged in from the guilt of something they can no longer go back to yesterday and the yesterdays before yesterday and do anything about. We don't get to go back and erase anything in life. All we get is the present moment to go forward. There is only the present and the past. The future is a concept. Tomorrow never comes. It will only be another today. We only exist in the now, the right now, the today. We cannot go back to yesterday. It just gives us a point of reference, some experiences. And sometimes yesterday requires that we forgive. So after giving up the guilt, we're also giving up on those negative intentions that we hold for those who have hurt us, those who have wronged us. Forgiving them for their negative intentions towards us, and letting go of our negative intentions towards them, even though they might feel justified. They might appear to be necessary and to be relevant. But we got to give up our negative intentions because karma is real. What I aim at you will be aimed back at me. What I say about you will be said about me. What I want for you will be granted back to me. So imagine everything you throw out and everything you think is a boomerang. You throw it out into the world and the universe sends it right back to you. That's what makes it so tough for good people to move forward, because they're hanging on to their own negative intentions, but justifiably so. But in this present moment, we want to go forward. So there is a give and forgiveness. But that gift is not for the person that I'm talking about. That person that you need to aim forgiveness at. The first gift comes to you because it sets you free. Forgiveness offers you a victory. And those who fail to forgive, they claim and they cling to victim. We all know Vic, but some of us know Vic is victory. victorious and others as victim. We don't need to be victims any longer. Not when there's a force, a power to forgive. But it's necessary that we give up the emotions. The emotions of anger, fear, envy. We gotta give up those emotions. Because those emotions hold us down, hold us back. A hot air balloon cannot rise. Your soul, your purpose cannot ascend with the sandbags of issue and heavy emotions like anger, maybe even fear. We can't rise with those static emotions that sound like words, but metaphysically they hold you down. So we gotta give up some things. I'm not saying give up the fight. I'm not saying give up being right. I'm saying let's get it right. So when I say give up, up is unleash your power. Unleash your power. See, I'm playing with words today because I want some people to get free. And I see a whole lot going on right now in society where people are still clinging to pain that I learned how to release. Does not mean I forgot anything with regards to my history, with regards to yesterday, with regards to today. We have new communities that are coming into more understanding, more understanding of the Black experience. Juneteenth was just celebrated. So many people posting, calling, emailing, hey, I knew nothing about this. They never taught us this in school. See, I had to forgive the education system for teaching me his story and not our story. I was in middle school when they created Black History Day, Black History Week, and then Black History Month. Okay? And all they told little young Johnny Williams was that he was a slave. And that his great-great-great-great-grandparents and their great-great-great-great-grandparents were slaves, and that they were granted their freedom. That's hard for somebody to ingest all that injustice. It's hard for a little young Black male to be in a class where he's the only Black individual learning along with other peers and friends that you were a slave. It's like, no. As I began to learn about my own history, thanks to my mother and my father, sending me to the library to do extra research on my own. The mystery in my story I had to find. And when I found my story, each year they gave me more layers of my story. I realized how much was missing from my story. I forgave that teacher right there in that classroom. He or she don't know. They don't know. And if they do, they're not teaching it, maybe because they're not allowed to. Therefore, I forgive this nation's education system. Otherwise, I'm going to be angry. And if I'm angry, justifiably so, I walk down the street and I'm angry. Now I feed the stereotype, which is another intention that we got to give up, our intentions. I'm angry about the intentions that people have towards my community. But if I look angry, I look like I have the intention to hurt someone. So if I don't forgive, which is going to be necessary for me to maintain my freedom, as we celebrate Emancipation Proclamation, Juneteenth, 1 year later, in a few days, a few months after the Emancipation Proclamation was signed into law by Abraham Lincoln, as a young person, I was taught he's free the slaves. No. They set free the captives. I don't use the word slave anymore. Because slave left me and my community and my nation with the shame. We were human beings that were captured by capitalists who wished to capitalize on our labor. So I will say my ancestors were captives, because where there's a captive, there is a captor. Where there's a captive, there's a captor. We own this story together. Let's be clear. No man and no woman can set anybody free. You did not get me here, so you can't set me free. You can chain my feet and my hands, but that's just my avatar. When I learned to forgive, I ascended beyond this black body. I move it about this world so that I can do the work that serves a purpose for me being here. My role, my community, my nation, my blackness, it served a purpose. And now we move on. We have been the global mirror of people's hate, not towards me or any of mine, but hate for self. You can't extend hate out unless hate's within. So others are just mirrors. So when I began to understand to the depth of all the pain and all the images that I went and researched on my own that made me so angry, what my ancestors had to go through just so I could sit in the library and read about what they went through, I refused to look at my community as victims. It takes strength to endure 400 plus years of captivity, the removal of language, religion, names. Many people don't even understand that what I refer to as the African continent was not given that name by individuals that inhabited the African continent, nor the names of the different countries. They were all named by people outside of the continent. So much of us chasing down the truth is going to be very, very difficult, because you're relying upon his and her books and what the author decided to write for you and I to study. So some of us have mastered the lies. Some of us have mastered the lies. I've been on stages as a speaker, conferences, different conversations where individuals are speaking, and I have to forgive them right there in that moment for saying things that aren't necessarily true. But I learned, Johnny Williams, stop getting so emotional. You are the master of your emotion. And that's one thing that forgiveness gives to you, is the power to master your emotion. You give up the guilt. You drop your own intentions. Whether you feel they're justified on somebody else's, I dropped my intentions for people to pay the price for what was done to my nation. What's still being done, subtly, covert to my nation. I gave up being a victim and claimed a victory. I come from a mighty people that endured what many would never want to even fathom. But I have been guilty of being a captor to my own emotion, my own way of feeling about these things. So, what's the steps in processing this gift called forgiveness? How do we manage this power? I say we do 4 things. Key the word "for" in forgiveness. First, we need to stop and evaluate the fact that something's been done. Something went wrong. I'm feeling a certain way. There's certain people or person that our energy, our interaction has gone left. We need it back right. So I stop and just acknowledge that something's gone wrong. The second thing I do is I reflect on what changes I need to make, how I need to reposition myself, and also what exactly I need to forgive this person for, so I can release the guilt. I can free them from the guilt. I can withhold my own intentions. I can claim the victory, and I own my emotions. I got to reflect on all those things. And then I go on to declare. Means I speak up. I raise my voice. Not so much yelling at someone, but you pull the power in and you let someone know, I need to talk to you. I need to forgive you for this, for this, for this, and this. To say I forgive you, the person, okay, thank you. But it's not about forgiveness that way. It's about clarifying what you're forgiving someone for. So in my research, I found a lot about the work of Nelson Mandela. Traveled to South Africa twice. My first time there with my brother Jerome and the NBA and Dikembe Mutombo, we had an opportunity to meet with Nelson Mandela, who at the time had just taken ill. And that illness continued on for a few more years before his passing. And the day that it was set up for us to have a meeting, a private meeting between 5 or 6 NBA players and some NBA staff, my brother and I were also invited to that closed-door meeting to speak with a legend. But unfortunately, our flight home was scheduled that morning. So my brother and I couldn't make that particular meeting. To sit with an icon, to shake the hand of someone who did something very, very amazing. See, his captivity, his imprisonment spanned over 20-some years, 15 to 20 years. But what's most important was when he was released to lead his nation, to take leadership of South Africa, he knew that all the apartheid efforts, which is much like the civil rights movement, the signs, the colorism, no blacks here, light skin can go this far, black goes only this far, whites had full access in Africa, in South Africa. This was going on in the 1990s. Still. So when he took the leadership position of his country, it was very empowering. Much like people seeing President Barack Obama stepping forward into the role of president. Right, wrong, indifferent, good things, bad things, the symbolism of it, because I'm not into politics, too many agendas, but the symbolism of it was very much like what was happening at that time in Johannesburg, South Africa. But one of the first things that Nelson Mandela did as a leader, and leaders listen, they empower, they accept the challenge that others cannot take, and they decide how they're going to lead. What he did with that leadership position, he moved his nation to a national forgiveness period, where on the local level, in the neighborhood level, at the civic and governmental level. There were forgiveness events where people were able to step to each other and be very clear as to what they were going to forgive each other for. So when my brother and I and others in the NBA family, Basketball Without Borders, arrived in South Africa, we didn't feel some of the tension that one might feel in this country still, because of the power in this word. Because of the power in this word. So they, as a nation, were able to proceed. Does not mean everything was fixed. Does not mean everything is perfect. But they were able to proceed a lot better than us in this country. Because they acknowledged. America has failed to acknowledge. So I forgive America for running up until this point away from a conversation, away from the construct of captive and captor, where many have said, it's slavery, it's over, get over it. We would get over it if we could get from up under it. If we could get from up under it. This summer, coming out of the quarantine, I decided that I'm gonna write a book about this. I'm gonna write a book that allows people to truly understand what all comes with just being black. I'm not writing it from one side or the other. I'm just gonna give you the information. I'm writing a book for parents who want to help their young people understand that even in these times, with the Internet of Things blending everything from music to pop and culture, but there's still some walls, there's still some glass ceilings that we don't want our young people to run into without having told them. I'm gonna give them some very empowering information so they understand what going forward means. But they're not held back nor defined by the shame of being told only that someone gave your nation freedom. Because with that concept, I'm left holding the shame, but you're left holding the guilt. You're left holding the guilt. So we have black shame and white guilt, and both are fighting for something. One is fighting to be heard, acknowledged, so we can get through it, and the other is trying to ignore that they even had it. We've been living with shame and guilt for so long that it's become part of our DNA, passed through the umbilical cord. But we have to teach our children what to believe. We teach our children our story, or we teach our children his story. The choice is yours. So we gotta dial in on a different station. We gotta dial in on a different station. Because sometimes we get in that little staticky area where our communication with each other is not clear. And forgiveness requires that we're real clear. Forgiveness requires that you might have to jump onto a station that you might not like. The music playing might not be to your liking. But you gotta understand. In order for us to have a real conversation, you gotta better understand me, and I gotta better understand you. So it's time to play a new song. I go back in my story. I listen to our songs. It's a lot of pain in those songs. A lot of unity in those songs. But when your unity is wrapped around the slavery, the captivity, the loss of humanness, and the fighting for rights, that are just due to every human being. When you can hear that as the common chord in your own songs, it's time to play a new song. When your songs celebrate the great old USA, you got to ask yourself, how did it get great? How did it get great? We hear about the third world. We rarely hear about the second world. So I guess America is first world. How did America grow in such a quick span of time into the status, into the position that it's in? How did it become great? See, you can't clarify greatness when at the same time you committed the greatest crime against humanity on the planet. So for my nation, my powerful nation that was able to endure all that this country asked of us without thanking us, without compensating us, you gotta say, we got the power. They tapped into that power, but we have the power now to forgive because it's necessary. So we can replace the old tape and adjust our antennas to receive new informations and new downloads and new purpose that unify us. I typically sign off with my fingers together like this because normally we say peace, but don't even think about the fact that peace is together. Peace is not divided. That's segregation. So we've been promoting symbolism that's saying, okay, peace is you go your way, I go my way. We'll meet in the consumption pool because everybody in America wants to still capitalize, not realizing that capitalism in this country was birthed from the captives of this country. The land of this nation was taken from individuals that did not get compensated. A few hand claps, a little bit of acknowledgement. That doesn't do justice for our First Nation individuals either. So we got a lot of things to think about as it relates to forgiveness. So I'm not talking about the stuff at the itty bitty personal level today. I'm going to the big picture. Because if I can talk about the power of forgiveness in the grand scheme of things, as it relates to all things going on right now, I turn on my TV and I see Black Lives Matter. I look in the newspaper and I see the promotion of Juneteenth and other aspects. I look on Twitter and I see corporations making large donations to causes all things black. That's great, but it needs to be a real conversation that lends itself to the steps being taken to a reconciliation, to a real acknowledgement, to a framework that people can actually forgive. That people can actually forgive. This week's quote is one, I think it's in my book. I'm not sure if it's in the book or not, but it's one of my favorites as it relates to the topic of forgiveness. And it just states that sometimes what we want is not available from who we want it from. And we stay just to give them enough time to give it. See, sometimes we got men and women that stay in relationships too long because somebody took something from them. Somebody hurt them. And I'm going to stay longer to get it back or give them a chance to get it right. Sometimes what we want is not available from who we want it from. and we stay just to give them enough time to give it. Been giving America a long time to say, I'm sorry. To say, all these banks that can be traced back to the capitalistic efforts and intentions of leveraging free labor in this country for 200-300 years. The same banks that my nation walks into and systemically, statistically, great credit, good credit, marginal credit, sketchy credit, almost all of us get treated the same. The same banks that made money off of my ancestors' backs are the same banks that'll overlook my business plan. But if I give it to one of my friends, a different hue from mine, a different shade from mine, walk the same plan into the bank, and it's a great idea. See, these are the type of things that create the emotion that I had to learn. J-Dub, you are not going to be at the mercy of your emotions. You got to put your life on emotional pause. What do you want in your life? I want peace. How do you resonate in your life? Joy. Well, then that needs to be your pursuit on a daily basis. Maintain the peace and generate more joy. Gravity is real. I can always find a problem, but I can always find a solution. Thanks, Mom and Dad, for that. I always made sure that me and my brothers recognize that there's always a solution. Whatever you want, it's just a gap between what you must do to acquire it. And talking about it, griping about it, crying about it, complaining about it, does not close that gap. So leverage that energy to close the gap. Learn, pick up books, ask questions, research, enter the net with a purpose, not to be distracted, but to extract from it the resources and the information you need to move forward. So, forgive yourself. Forgive yourself for hanging on to stuff that doesn't belong to you. Forgive yourself for things you've done wrong to people. Because guilt is real, and we all are guilty of doing something. So forgiveness sometimes starts with self. And then forgive someone else. Forgive someone else. Start small. Forgive somebody maybe in your house, within your family. Forgive somebody that maybe said something to you at work. Maybe they knew what they said, or maybe they didn't know what they said. But manage the emotion. If you manage your emotion, you're going to get past a lot of the fight. Most people are fighting to be a good person. So understand that how you say what you say, how you release your power, is critically important. So make sure you're under emotional control, okay? But forgive someone else this week. The card that I pulled this week is you have the power. You have the power. You always have, Dorothy. You always have. As we venture down this yellow brick road, looking for the courage to just be ourselves. Forgive those along your path that came into your story to distract you, to hurt you, to scare you, or to take from you, or manipulate you. Forgive them, but stay focused on the path. Know that forgiveness comes from your heart. Tin Man. needed a heart. That was the metaphor for Dorothy. Tap into your heart space. 528 megahertz is the love frequency. Operate from that place as it relates to forgiveness. You either want a world of war or you want a world of peace. I want a world of peace. So I have to forgive to get what I want. And it's going to require that I got the courage to say what I'm saying to you right now, the lion. And I tap into my heart, the Tin Man, to say it with love and to forgive with love. But I got to be able to think for myself. And that's what freed me from that age-old narrative of J.W. You're just a descendant of a slave. Like, nah, that's not my story. That's his story. And he writes fictional stories. That's a very interesting story. But if you want to know my story, ask me. You want to know my story? Look at the fact that I'm still here. I'm still here. I don't know if he or she that wrote that story, I don't know if they could even endure themselves. But I also know that there's a lot of guilt and karma that comes with each and everything that we do. So watch your intentions. Read between the lines. Think independently. And let's shed this groupthink. Thinking along the lines of Republican and Democrat when it's all like WWE wrestling, it's all the same. Same game. We need to become independent thinkers. And that's why I promote thought. That's why you always hear me say, think about it. That's why my book is something to think about. I am not trying to tell you what to think. I'm just encouraging you to think. I take time to sit and think. They told me as a child, I just daydream too much. But they never asked me what I daydreamed about. I was daydreaming about, if I was in a leadership position, how I'd bring about peace in this world. How the leaders seem more concerned with votes and saying the right thing and being right was failing us as a nation to get it right. So, as always, I'll make sure that all this is posted in the notes so you can read it clearly. I just ask that if anything that I've said today resonates with you, leave me a comment. Thumbs up are great, but leave me a comment. Suggest some topics you want me to bring up and talk about or share my opinion on in the comment section. That's how this topic got here. I probably wouldn't have done a topic on forgiveness. But just one of the Thought Tribe members said, I'd like to hear you speak on forgiveness. That was 2 weeks ago. Here we are. So I listen to you all, but I can't read your mind. So if you want to touch base with me offline, thoughttribe@mail.com. You want a daily quote? It's not your typical regular quotes you've been seeing over the years from different prominent individuals. You want something fresh and new that was written specifically to get you thinking. Download the Think About It app. Apple and Android, just type in Think About It. You'll see this little guy every day. A thought or the full quotes from this book will come to you. I just want to make sure that people understand that long before I decided to open my mouth and step in front of these cameras, I've traveled in and out of this nation for 20 years, talking to young people of all nations and stations. And I felt that that was the best place for me to start. That a part of my legacy would be to speak to 1 million kids. I did that. I find myself now in Las Vegas, Nevada, and I've accomplished my mission. of donating $1 million worth of speeches over a 9-year period. And I did it in such a way that this state was able to claim the value of those speeches to move $1 million into social service programming to advance young people along their path, like Dorothy, to their American dream. Understanding that you have to also wake up from the dream and walk it out. My goal now, and this is where I need your help, as I'm getting older, I've done my running, I've done a lot of talking. My goal now is to actually inspire 1 million people each day across the globe to think for themselves, to think deeper. Because I know that a thinking populace is less likely to be taken advantage of, less likely to get hurt. It'd be a less need for forgiveness if we have foresight and can see the bends and the curves in the road and leverage our experience and our wisdom to steer clear of situations that will require our forgiveness, that would emotionally hijack our day. So that's my new goal. That's the legacy side of my life now, is to leverage these social platforms like Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, because that's primarily where my older group is at. I've done what I'm going to do for our young people. Now it's time for me to work with the young at heart. Now it's time for me to work with the individuals that drive this nation, steer this nation, raise this nation's children. And I know that as I delve into that audience, we got a lot more stuff going on than the little young people that were much easier to help negate and avoid future mistakes. As I engage my target audience, my age group, we've already made our mistakes. We've already done our stuff. And some of us are hiding from the shame. Some of us are angry. Some of us have capitalized on somebody else. We got a lot of stuff in there. So my topics are going to get deeper and deeper. I'm sure you recognize by now I'm not a shallow guy. I spend enough time in the baby pool, in the shallow end of the pool. So in order for me to go deeper with you, I need you to swim with me. I need you to head out into the deep end with me. We got to be able to think deep. But we can't think deep if we're worrying about something we feel guilty about. We can't think deep if we're hanging on to some anger and want to just be right. Can't get there. We got to let go of the side of the pool and we got to swim. We got to swim. Because we're all but drops in the sea of consciousness. And each and every last one of us gets this life experience and the free will to go right or left, to stand stuck, to love or to hate, to forgive or not to forgive. Each one of us is given the assignment of expressing that consciousness as just one drop, one life. And when we take our last breaths, just like individuals have taken their last breath and it sparked the breath of conversation in this nation, so their lives were not in vain. Their lives were not in vain if we take this conversation to the next level. But what's necessary is forgiveness. Otherwise, we just have people talking about what was done and people spectating. But what do we do with that? No. How do we move on? How do we go from I'm here, you're there, and we call that peace, to peace? The answer might just be forgiveness. Something to think about. Johnny Williams, have a great day.